As a college student, I didn't have that money, and there was just no way. Plus, they were wealthy, right? And so I couldn't compete with those guys. But from what they introduced me to with the drifting, I knew, if you watch those drifting videos in Japan, none of the cars looked like show cars, or they didn't look like shop cars. They were just regular cars. They would be lightly tuned with, they were lowered with wheels. They didn't have a lot of horsepower. So for me, when I saw that, I was like, that's it for me. It's about your skill behind the wheel. It's about practicing and getting seat time. And it wasn't so much about like, these are all the things on my spec sheet, or this is how much money I put in my car to make it, 400 horsepower.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from, in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome. All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you for spending this time with us. We do very much appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you'll notice that it's me in Scott's chair today. Unfortunately, Scott cannot be with us, but that's okay. I'll be able to handle the show with Victoria. So, Victoria, what was it like for you when you were like coming up to get your driver's license? Like, what was that process like, and how were you excited, or did you fear that?
I was nervous. In my family, I was the one who got it the latest, which was at 16 instead of 15 and a half. Yeah. So I guess I was a little outlier there. But yeah, I was nervous, and it wasn't too bad. It just, went in for the test. Had the driving school take me around 3 times, and then my parents, mostly my dad, would be in the car with me getting the rest of the hours in. Then I passed the first time, got my driver's license, and started driving myself around.
Did it represent freedom for you, like it did for me and many kids? Like, okay, now you can get away on your own and go explore stuff, or what was that like?
I guess a little bit. We mostly, because we would start community college, and so mom, there's 6 of us, so mom can't drive a person to community college every day. And she could, but then she would have to take everybody with her, so it's a little more of the process. So it's just easier for us to have our own car and drive ourselves to college, and then we just come home and we can do more chores for mom, like go grocery shopping if we need to and stuff like that.
Is it true that now they teach you to hold your hands not on 10 and 2, but at the bottom?
I don't know about that. When I learned it, at the 10
and 2.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're changing.
I've heard that for airbags or something, or maybe someone was like, oh, you're old if you learned to drive at 10 and 2, but I don't know. I remember I got my driver's permit when I was 15 and a half, and I got my license the day I turned 16. And I was super excited for that. But now that I can say this, I was driving since I was 14. My friend's car, his Ford Tempo, he didn't have a license, so he didn't care that I didn't have a car. I was like, okay, cool, you don't have a license, I don't have a license, I'm just going to drive. And now I think about it, I go, wow, that's so dangerous, I wasn't speeding or anything. I was obviously very careful, but yeah, that's what I did in high school. But thank you for sharing that story, Tori. Before we get into today's guest, thank you to Paris Baguette San Gabriel for providing the delicious pastries and treats for our guest. We do appreciate it. Go check them out in San Gabriel on Las Tunas. Say hi to Jason for us. They're always very kind in providing these. Well, now it's on to our guest. Today, we're riding shotgun with a true pioneer of the pavement, a maestro of the drift scene, who's been burning rubber and shaping corners since the days when drifting was just a whisper in the States. Born in the heart of the San Gabriel Valley to a Toisanese family, this drift king started spinning his wheels long before social media. From empty parking lots to the asphalts of Irwindale Speedway, he's not just competed but conquered, grabbing the podium at the Falken Drift Showoff as one of the first to bring the art of Japanese drift to American soil. He's now shifted gears to teaching and mentoring the next generation of drifters. When he's not ruling the racetrack, he's ruling the airwaves with his podcast, the SIL 80 Mania Podcast, diving deep into drifting culture alongside his wife, Nadine. His show about giving props to the unsung heroes of the drift world, both in the USA and across the Pacific. He's a tech geek, a loving husband, and a devoted father to 4 daughters. He's hung up his racing gloves to focus on family and culture, but his legacy on the track continues to inspire. All right, SGVers, gear up for a man who's drifted past every challenge with grace and guts. Let's give it up for the drift pioneer, community builder, podcaster, and family man, Benson Hsu. Benson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, what an intro. Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started thinking about doing those things, I was like, why not hype them up? Because like, how awesome would that be, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to share and celebrate you and what you've done. So
yeah, thank you so much. That was awesome.
So Benson, let's start with the beginning. What's your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
I was born and raised here. So my mom said I was born in, I think it's there's that hospital on Garfield. So I was born there. My mom and dad, they bought their very first home in West Covina, and that's where I grew up. And, I've lived there my whole life, spent a lot of time in Monterey Park. And I just found out today that Chinatown is not part of the SGV. But yeah, I spent a lot of time in Chinatown, Monterey Park, and Walnut, where I went to high school.
Okay. What did you do in Monterey Park when you came out here?
So when my mom started going back to work after, spending some time with us, raising us when we were just born, I have an aunt out in Monterey Park. So she would watch us during the day while she was at work. So, and then I went to elementary school. There was a small private elementary school in Monterey Park called Children's Village. And I went there until 6th grade.
Where's that?
That was on Garfield also. Let's see. It was south of the 10. It was right next to Barnes Park. It's not there anymore. But I do remember our principal was George Ige, and from what I know, he was the mayor of Monterey Park for a little bit.
Was it next to 31 Flavors? Like
yes.
That, and Chano's?
Yes.
Oh, dang. I know where that is.
You know where that is?
Yeah, okay.
We, I was a little rebellious. I didn't tell a lot of people, but, we jumped the fence sometimes, and we went to Chano's or we'd go to Baskin Robbins.
Yeah. Oh, man. Wow. That area has a lot of memories for me because I used to get dropped off at Brueggemeyer, or not dropped off. I would have to go there after school. And so I'd walk through, I think your school. I would walk through there to go to, like Duffy's Liquor, I think was the liquor store, right?
Oh, I would go there too and play Street Fighter.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you were commuting quite a distance from West Covina.
Yeah. My mom worked at Children's Hospital in LA. So it was kind of on the way.
I see. Okay. And then you said already at that age you were a little bit rebellious?
I mean, I guess I had some rebellious friends who were an influence on me, and they're like, let's get out of here and go play Street Fighter or, see what's at the liquor store or, whatever. So yeah, just kind of followed along.
Okay. And then where did you go to school after that?
After that, I went to Christ Lutheran in Covina, and that's off of Citrus and the 10. And then that was just for 7th and 8th grade. And then I went to Walnut High.
And I think I remember listening that you started getting introduced to drifting with magazines and videotape, right? Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough to get some of the Japanese magazines and videos here in the U.S., although it wasn't very well known. You kind of had to, well, A, you had to be into cars, right? They were car magazines. And then B, you'd have to know where to get them. And so my friends were very much into cars. And,
Was this in the 7th, 8th grade or high school?
This was in high school. For me, when I was introduced to it, it was my junior and high school years, or junior and senior years. And so they would kind of just show me, or I'd see them on the table, or I'd walk in while they're watching their videos. And it was, it was just, for me, it was just car stuff. I didn't really know until I really started getting into it that I noticed that there was a difference between the things that they were doing there and the things that we're doing here. And, I saw drifting, which I'd never seen before. So, it was kind of, it was a time in high school where cars were becoming really popular, like import cars, Japanese cars, fixing them up. And, it was a time where I was finding myself as an Asian American person, finding out that there are some things to be proud of, because we didn't have a lot of Asian influence in pop culture, U.S. pop culture. And, it had been a while since Bruce Lee passed. We had maybe like Christy Yamaguchi, or maybe like Karate Kid. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot. It's not like today where people have Korean pop music on the radio. And so when Japanese cars were becoming popular to fix up, that was big for me and my identity. So I latched onto that. And that was all part of it, just the Japanese influence on the cars that we loved.
What was home life for you during this time?
Home life was good. I had great parents, very kind, and they were cool with a lot of things that I did, and they were not overly strict. As long as I went to school, did well, did the things that they asked, life was good. Yeah.
So for people who don't know that era, like what kind of cars were you seeing fixed up?
So then Hondas were huge. So Honda Civics, Acura Integras. If you don't know, Acura is a part of Honda. And in Japan, all the Acuras were actually Hondas. But I think there were others, right? There were some Toyota MR2s that were popular. Mitsubishi Eclipses were popular. But overall, Hondas were the big cars that were most popular.
Have you ever seen a four-door Honda Accord sedan slammed?
Yes, of course.
I thought it looked pretty good. I still think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, and it's very it's interesting to me because when we were that age, our parents were buying us those cars, not to fix up, but because they were reliable, they got good gas mileage, they were inexpensive. So it checked off all the check boxes for an Asian parent who wants to get a car for their kids. Mm. And then for us, we kind of turned it into this is the car I have, I'm going to fix it up. Mm. So yeah, definitely all kinds of four-door everything, things that were not meant to be race cars, we fixed them up, right?
So you said around junior year. So had you developed interest in cars before you had a license, or was it around the same time?
Maybe it's around the same time.
And did you already think okay, when I get my car, I'm going to start doing stuff too?
No. Well, see, I was not lucky enough to have a Honda. My parents, they didn't buy me a car. I kind of just drove one of the cars that they had. So I had a Mazda 626. It was a sedan. And it was not fast at all. And it was big. And yeah, I mean, of course, I drove it hard because I was a young teenager with a car and with freedom. So, I'd floor it a lot. I would try and, they call it chirping second gear. So you go in first gear as hard as you can, and you throw it in second, and you dump the clutch, and you try and make the wheel spin. So I would do that in it. But yeah, it was not a car to fix up. So I did not really touch it. But I think that kind of gave me hunger to get something of my own, something that I could fix up, and, a car that I could dream about, think about all the things that I wanted to do it. So, and my friends were into Nissans. So, with how popular Hondas were at the time, that was one really cool thing that they did was they were fixing up Nissan 240 SXs, and which were very unpopular. So back then, that was the primary market for that car was middle-aged women. But in Japan, it was a sports car. It had a 2-liter turbo. Everyone was racing them, all kinds of racing, drag racing, drifting, everything, road racing. But here it was kind of like, if you're a middle-aged woman, if you're a secretary or something like that, those were the types of people that had that car. So that made it really cool to me because it was something that I could get that had so much tuning potential, and no one really understood the car here for what it was.
So that was your dream car to get?
That was what I wanted, yeah.
And did you get it?
I did get it. So we spent some time looking, and those guys, and I want to give them a shout out. Back then they were called Skyline Motorsports. Now they're called, they're not around anymore. They were then they turned into V-Spec. Now they're, a lot of them are at Car Code. They hang out there. But yeah, they kind of introduced me to the whole Nissan scene. They helped me find a car. So I bought a 1991 Nissan 240SX in 1999, and I bought it for $5,000. I bought it for $5,000, and it had a little over 100,000 miles on it.
Was this, you're still in high school?
I was in college.
You're in college.
Yeah. And 5,000, it was the price at that point, it was not at its lowest. It was on its way down. And then, several years later, you can buy one for like $1,000, $2,000. Today is a different story. Today, maybe like a car in the same exact condition that I bought, you would buy for maybe like $20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you get your car, and now what's the first thing you did to it?
Besides horse around on the street? Let's see. It came with some shocks and springs. The exterior is a little rough, so just trying to like clean it up a little bit. But I did put a Blitz muffler on it. That was the very first thing, actually. And then I put some seats from a newer Nissan 240SX in it. So the seats were like torn and there's like metal sticking out and stuff. So changed the seat. Those were the very first things I did to it. But it didn't take me long before I put coilover suspension on there, which is like race suspension. You can lower and raise the car. You can adjust the dampening levels, so how stiff it rides. That was a big one. And then I swapped my engine to the Japanese 2-liter turbo engine. I put you mentioned my podcast earlier. If most people won't know what it is, but you said SIL 80 Mania podcast. A SIL 80, I'm not going to go too much into it, but in Japan, there are two cars. There's a Silvia and a 180SX. And it's the same car underneath, but it's different on the outside. But you can take the front of a Silvia and put it on a 180 because it's the same car underneath. So when you do that, the Japanese nicknamed it the SIL 80.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I thought it was super cool, a super cool part of Japanese culture, and something that a lot of people didn't like. I do it, and people are like, "What kind of car is that?" They didn't know because we didn't have Silvias here. So to see that was really strange, but super cool to me.
So I want to get into the drifting part. So you said you were horsing around. Like, what were you doing at that time?
So when I bought it, I already knew that I wanted to go drifting. All of my car friends, they were big into drag racing. Then they were later big into car shows. And that takes a lot of money. To go fast on a drag strip, you need lots of parts. You need to tune it. To be good at a car show, it's even worse. Everything needs to be pristine, on top of all the parts that you need to buy. And as a college student, I didn't have that money, and there was just no way. Plus, they were wealthy, right? And so I couldn't compete with those guys. But from what they introduced me to with the drifting, I knew, if you watch those drifting videos in Japan, none of the cars looked like show cars, but they didn't look like shop cars. They were just regular cars. They would be lightly tuned with, they were lowered with wheels. They didn't have a lot of horsepower. So for me, when I saw that, I was like, that's it for me. It's about your skill behind the wheel. It's about practicing and getting seat time. And it wasn't so much about like these are all the things on my spec sheet, or this is how much money I put in my car to make it, 400 horsepower. So I grabbed onto that, and the fact that, people didn't really know what it was here, I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow. So where did you start like learning it or developing the skill yourself?
Yeah. So, like I said, when I bought my car, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And there was no events for us because no one knew what it was. And so the only place I could do it was in like empty parking lots. I was doing it on the street. And I just want to preface that, I don't recommend you do that. To the listeners out there, do not go out and do that. You will wreck your car. You will injure someone while crossing the street. You will damage someone's property. It's going to be bad for you. Plus, it's really hard to learn on the street with, having to like look out for cops, look out for curbs. But this is what the environment was like for me, where there was nowhere to learn. There was no one to teach me. There was no safe place to learn. So that's where I started. And then, I found some other friends who were really into it as well. And I had one friend named Dave Scholes who went to Japan, actually, and he spent a lot of time there, and he made some friends with some Japanese legends, and they kind of showed him, introduced him to the drifting world over there. And he came back, and he actually brought me to Glendora Mountain Road. I know you go hiking there. And he brought me drifting up there, and he kind of opened my eyes to the sensations of a car that's sliding.
Were you scared?
I was not. You would think, I don't know if it was because I was young and stupid, or if he was just really in good control of his car. But I was not scared for 1 minute. I was more amazed. I'd seen the world in a different light after that point. And I started drifting up there too. And, we did that for a while until things got really bad. People were finding out what we were doing up there, and they wanted to come and watch, and they would go and try it, and they would crash their cars. Without fail, every time there was a crowd up there, someone crashed. Someone went off the side of the road, down the mountain. There are some people that died up there. So when it started getting really bad, we stopped. And but luckily, around the same time, we started getting events. So people were hosting events out in Palmdale, Buttonwillow Raceway, and then eventually Irwindale Speedway. And so at that point, we stopped, and then it was all on the track. And the track is so much better. You have a safe learning environment. You have instructors. What took me a year and a half to learn on my own in the streets, on the racetrack, it'll take you 1 day, maybe 2 days. So it's just not worth it to do on the street.
Wow. You have to have some sort of like outlaw mentality to do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I imagine, right?
Yeah. The best of us were the ones that cared the least.
So I'm curious, like, have you ever had your car impounded?
No, I was really lucky. We've had friends that rolled their cars over. We've had cops that figured out what we were doing and where, and they would block off all the exits to where we were at. We would call it a raid, but sometimes helicopters would come out. So, and people would get their cars impounded. We got people who got, big, what is it? What is it? They got their licenses taken away. Mm-hmm. So yeah, lots of bad things.
That never happened to you though?
It never happened to me. What? I don't know why.
Do you have traffic tickets?
I've gotten maybe 2 speeding tickets, and I used traffic school for them. So yeah, I don't really get in trouble with the law.
Wow.
I was really, really lucky. I think my life would be very different if I'd gotten caught for a lot of things that I've done. Yeah, that sounds terrible. I'm not some crazy person that has broken the laws. But yeah, definitely reflecting back, there's a lot of things that I did that I got away with. And I think people would think differently of me if I had gotten in trouble, and my life would be very different.
I say outlaw mentality, but I'm sort of joking in that you have to have this like, fearlessness, I think,
definitely.
to do something and to try something and to, do what you do.
Yeah.
I used to get a speeding ticket every 18 months because, you have to do it. You can't take driving school outside of that. So I taper it down every 18 months since I was 16. I got my first speeding ticket my first week I had my license.
So did I.
Nice.
I got mine leaving Cal Poly.
Oh, that was a horrible conversation with my mom.
Oh
my
yeah.
Gosh.
Oh
wow.
yeah.
Well, Benson, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. You brought 2 today. So what did you bring with you?
Okay. Let me grab it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is huge. But it's a plaque. It's a magazine that came out. It was called Drifting Magazine, and on it is a picture of my car and my now wife's car, Nadine, and they featured us. It was kind of like a love story. This is one of 2 that we've done. So this one is for Drifting Magazine, and our good friend Ed Lowe shot it, and it was taken at Santa Anita Racetrack. And so you can see the racetrack in the background.
Yeah,
you can see the San Gabriel Mountains in the background. Interesting fact, Ed Lowe is now the chief editor at Motor Trend. So he's done good for himself. But yeah, this was really big. This was the first drifting magazine in the US. So that was big also. So they did a nice feature on us. I think this was their first issue.
Awesome. Thank you for, can I see it?
Yeah, of course.
You can go on to the next one if you like.
Yeah. So I brought 2. I had to dust this one off this morning. There's still a lot of dust on it, but this is a tiny little trophy. And I just discovered this on it says second place Pro Series. And I think I saw this for the first time this morning. If you flip it around, it says Euro Class second place. So it's kind of like interchangeable. I don't know if they didn't award this to someone, maybe, I don't know. But so I won this. I won second place at an event in Chicago, and it was called the RSR Drift Festival. And that event had a lot of significance for me because at that event, I met a lot of people who I call close friends today. I met them in Chicago. And so I kind of have like a second group of like close friends over there. This event was also an event where I won second place, and I was on the podium with 2 other friends, Ken Gushi and Yoshihara. And they're both my good friends. And they went on to have amazing careers in Formula Drift, the Pro Series in the US, and now Japan. They were both champions. I was never a champion, but it was cool for me to be up there with my 2 buddies. And also at this event, I won a prize of $6,000, which was really big at that time. And it allowed me to finally get a engagement ring so I can propose to Nadine, who is now my wife.
Oh, wow.
So without that event, it would have happened anyway, but I was getting paid minimum wage at the time working for a car shop, and it was hard to save up money. So this gave me that lump sum so that I can finally do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great story. Thank you for bringing that and for sharing that story with us.
Yeah.
So I want to go back. So now you stopped doing the illegal stuff on GMR.
Yeah.
You got a racetrack, and now where does your journey go next?
So I was instructing a lot, so we were doing events all the time, and getting lots of sunburns, which was probably bad for my skin. We were doing lots of events, instructing, and we were advancing as well. We were given the ability to do like faster courses, things that we weren't able to learn on the streets. So we were getting into like, I think the fastest I ever drifted on one of our practice courses was 80 miles per hour.
Whoa.
And Japan was noticing what we were doing. And a little side story, they actually came in 1996 to do a drifting competition here, and it was terrible. And none of the U.S. drivers were good, and they never came back. Fast forward to 2002. I think it was 2002. They came back, and this was 2003. I'm sorry. So Falken got together with Ken Miyoshi from Import Showoff, who's famous for doing car shows, and they put together a drifting competition. And they brought over Japanese drifting legends like Koguchi, and they did a competition, and I won first place, which was beyond my wildest dreams. To drift with Koguchi, who is one of my drifting idols, and he's been drifting for so long, and he's all over those Japanese magazines and videos that I used to watch. So I won that, and they kept coming back, and they brought their professional drifting series here to do like an exhibition event, and so we got to see them up close. They weren't sharing a whole lot of knowledge with us, but watching them, listening to them, we can kind of like pick up a lot of things. But that kind of opened the door for professional drifting in the U.S. So there are a lot of competitions, and then Formula D started in 2004, and in 2004, I decided to join in on it. Just I felt like I was with drifting from. I went very close to the beginning in the U.S., and I wanted to keep riding the wave. So I competed, and we traveled the U.S. We went to Houston, Atlanta. We went to Northern California, and then Irwindale. So we toured the U.S., and I did okay. I had I was in a lot of different cars, so I'd never had a consistent car, and a lot of the cars I was in always had problems, so didn't have like a consistent year, but I did okay. I placed 16th in the series that year.
Why is that? You don't get to race your own car, or?
Well, there were everyone was doing something different. There are some of my friends who just had a full ride, and they just showed up and they got in the car. I had some other friends who had a car to drive in, but they had to work on it. I started the season in my own car, and I was sponsored by HI and Hot Wheels, which was really cool. And that paid for the transport of my car. It paid for the transport of my friends who were my pit crew. And but yeah, my car wasn't enough. A funny story is, well, if you look at today's pro drifting series, Formula D, and the cars that are in, they have 1,000 horsepower. They have spare engines, spare transmissions. They change their gearing at the tracks. It's a really big production. Back then, in the first year of Formula D, I drove the car that the car that is in that picture that I showed earlier. I drove that car to the transport. They picked it up and brought it to wherever the race was, and I didn't have a car. That was my only car. That was the car I used to get groceries. It was the car I took our daughter Christy to school in. It was my regular car, so it was not enough to compete in. So I did one event in that car, and then a sponsor gave me their car to drive for 2 other events. But it was like, they had a business, so they couldn't focus completely on the car. So it had problems. They were doing last minute changes to it. Things were not running well. And so, yeah, all kinds of things. But I think that's also very normal for even today, with how prepared they are. People have car problems. It's very difficult to have a car that runs well under those conditions consistently, lap after lap, without something breaking or something getting loose or, whatever.
Yeah. For those who don't know, what is a drift competition like? Like how is it judged, or how do you
Sure.
win?
I mean, there are different thank goodness there are multiple types of competition these days. So, but I would say the Formula D competition, you have qualifying. So you basically do solo runs on the racetrack and they judge you. It's a judge sport where again, depending on the competition, they're looking for different things. But maybe I'll just go to the traditional competition. They're looking for your racing line, which is the line you trace through the racetrack with your car, right? There's a proper racing line, and which would be the fastest way through the track. So they want to see that you have good technical skill and you can trace the proper race line through the track. Another thing that they're looking for is how fast you're going, because you can trace the proper racing line, but you can be going really slow. They want to see you go as fast as you can for the car that you're in. And other things like how exciting you are, if you're getting close to walls, if you're making a lot of smoke with your car, things like that. So you have your qualifying round, which is just by yourself, and that kind of determines the seeding. Like, it's based on the score that you get if you placed 1 through 16 or what, and then that helps them figure out the competition bracket. So at that point, it's the bracket style where you go head to head with somebody else. So when you're going head to head, you have a leader and a chase guy. And the guy in the back is, and it depends on the type of competition, but the guy in the back is supposed to be as close to the front guy as possible. And the front guy is supposed to just lead a really good, just like they did in their qualifying lap, lead as good of a qualifying lap as you can. So, and then they switch. And then out of the two, they got to pick who did a better job.
I see. So it's not necessarily a race. Like the guy behind is not trying to get in front.
No, it's not a timed race. It's completely judged.
I see. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, Benson, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I want to learn more about your role as you judge these events, right?
Yeah.
And also as an instructor. So
sure.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Sometimes even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my gosh!
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years.
All right, we're back with Benson. Benson, before the break, you were sharing how these events go and how they're judged. I want to get more into your story, but when we come back from the break, we like to ask questions from this box of cards called Icebreakers. And it's just another way for the audience to get to know us, and you can choose to answer it or not. So, are you going to participate, Victoria?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Who is someone you really admire?
Okay. Victoria, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. First. I admire my wife. She's a systems thinker, and she described to me like that she has to see, and she's always looking for the system, which is kind of foreign to me, right? And she described like if you're on a desert and you are looking over like a population, it's all dark, and you can see these different lights, but you know they're all connected, and she knows that they're all connected. And as one light turns on, it turns on the next one, and she's viewing things like that. Not only that, but her pursuit of growth and knowledge is unlike anybody that I've ever known, and I benefit greatly from that. But yeah, I really do admire her for those things.
Yeah, that's good. I should have went first because the person I admire is my wife.
Okay,
my wife Nadine is she is a powerhouse. That's the only way I can explain her. She's an entrepreneur. She wasn't always an entrepreneur, so I kind of got to see her grow in a lot of different ways. So we met when we were 21, and if you compare the 21-year-old Nadine with today, they are so different. And I've seen her become a strong, independent woman, and she she's an entrepreneur, like I said, and she has multiple businesses. She's finds passion in so many things. So she's a very passionate person. But it's not just passion is probably for yourself, but I see her share those things with people. And I've seen her create a women's organization called Drifting Pretty, which empowers other women through motorsports. I've seen her do podcasts for other women to inspire them in different ways to help them find their passion, help them get through life's challenges. She's just amazing to me, the things that she can do.
Yeah, awesome. It's not just because she's sitting.
No, I would have said that anyway.
I'm just joking. Okay, Victoria.
I think I would say my mom. It's just, I guess, raising all 6 of us, and we were all homeschooled, so we were home all the time around her, and she was teaching everybody. And then now she's running for state senate, so that's something that she's taken on recently, and it's kind of cool to see her step up in that way into a different career than raising us. And I really like how she makes connections with people. Even when she was teaching us, she would have all these connections and be able to use them, or use them to further our education. And now she naturally does that to connect with people in her district and figure out what they want.
That's amazing. Moms are amazing. Women are amazing.
They are. So if you're listening or watching online, who is someone you really admire? Let us know in the comments. So Benson, as an instructor, are you in the car with them, or how does that go?
So it's both. So I would say that lazy instructors are not in the car. They want to just stand outside and kind of watch and give feedback when they're done. The best instruction is done inside the car. As a passenger, sometimes it's necessary to get into the driver's seat because everyone's car is different, and you don't truly know maybe why the car is behaving a certain way unless you drive it yourself. But yeah, you're sitting in the passenger seat and you're observing, you're listening, you're feeling, and you're giving real-time advice as they're on the track.
I see.
But I want to say that I get very motion sick. So so when you're the very first thing you teach is how to do donuts and figure eights. So you've seen donuts. It kind of looks like if you've seen a rap video, you've seen donuts. But when we're on the track learning how to drift, they're different than those. They're very controlled, and you want to. It's more technical. You're not just making smoke and just going wherever the car wants to take you. You're trying to control the car and trace a circle. So, but yeah, I get really sick doing that. So these days, if I'm in the car teaching you how to do donuts, you're a very special person to me for me to do that. It's literally a labor of love because I'll teach you and then I've got to lay down for an hour afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, apparently that's supposed to be a sign of health though, because your body's trying to protect you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I think it believes you have ingested a neurotoxin. Yeah. When the signals from your inner ear don't match your eye.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry for that tangent.
No, that's good.
Is there any saltiness that you are teaching people in a weekend, maybe what you took much longer to master?
No, not at all. I think, if anything, I wish that they understood that. I don't go in there telling people that all the time, but if they knew how good they have it, I think that it'd help them appreciate their time more. But yeah, no saltiness at all. I think it's great.
So you're teaching young women, right, to drift. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, anyone and everyone, but through Nadine's organization, we were doing a lot of teaching of women.
I see.
And that was before. We don't do so many track days anymore, but there are track days these days where it's all women.
So what was the best performing car that you ever got to drive, and do you have a dream car that you still haven't driven yet?
The best car I ever drove, it was my first year of Formula D, and it was the event that actually it had car problems when I won the second place trophy, but that was the car. It was a yellow car. It kind of had some history in Southern California, as it was owned by a person named Sam, and he like brought it to a lot of events, and he was well known. And another guy bought it and built it, made it amazing, and I got to drive it for that RSR event. It had 440 horsepower. It had a lot of cool engineering put into it, and it just made so much smoke and so much power. It was so much fun to drive.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Nissan 240 SX.
Okay.
Just like my car.
And is there a dream car that you wished you could drive?
For drifting or just driving?
Both.
No, I don't think so. I love cars, and I don't know that I have a specific dream car. I just any new car to me. There are so many cool cars out there, but I don't think I have a dream car. No.
Okay. And one last question. Did you ever play like Daytona, like in a huge row?
Yes. I don't think they have those anymore, right?
No, they don't.
No.
Did you ever play Johan?
Yes, I did.
Arcade? Okay. Like at 3 a.m?
No, not at 3 a.m. No, not at 3 a.m. But I did. I found out later that I had 2 friends that worked there at that arcade.
Oh, and they played like Unlimited, right?
Yes, they played Unlimited, and they were so good at that Daytona game.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Yeah,
that was so much memories there.
Yeah, and you can drift those things. Yeah.
Wow, wasn't it awesome when they started to like the car or the video game like used to move now when you would drift? Did you ever play in one of those?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, those make me sick.
Well, thanks for sharing all that, Benson. We're going to move on to the final portion of the show where we get to learn a little bit more about you and what you like.
Okay.
So, Benson, this is what we call the SGV3, and we ask you to share your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley.
Okay. So, my first one would be Glendora Mountain Road.
Okay.
For me, personally, that's where drifting started. And that's where drifting changed my life. So, I would say that first.
Is there footage out there of you?
There is, but I'd rather not share the street drifting stuff. There's footage, there's photos, but yeah.
Personal collection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. The second one would be Irwindale Speedway, because Irwindale Speedway is the first place where we got to call our drifting events drifting. So we had some events before that. But we couldn't call it drifting because the track owners did not like drifting. And anytime they would see drifting at one of their race events, we would get kicked out. You'd get black flagged, you'd get yelled at, you get kicked out. I got kicked out of many events for drifting. And so initially they had to disguise it as, they would call it car control. But at Irwindale, we were finally having drift events. Thank you to Drift Association for holding drift days there. And so at a grassroots level, we were able to do it there. And that was the first time that D1 Grand Prix, the pro series from Japan, came to the US. And that's what blew the gates wide open for drifting in the US. That very first event, I remember it was sold to capacity. It was 10,000 people coming to watch drifting. This is before Fast and the Furious. This is before you see, today I could say drifting and most people would know what I'm talking about, especially if I say Fast and the Furious. Back then, for drifting to fill Irwindale Speedway to capacity was just mind-blowing. And it was such a magical event, and I don't think we have time on this podcast for me to go into it, but it changed a lot of people's lives that day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
My third one The third one, I was going to say Chinatown until my wife told me this morning, Chinatown's not in the San Gabriel Valley. So I had to do a quick change, and I thought about it, and I would say my church, Monterey Park Chinese Baptist Church. It's been a consistent thing in my life since I was born. I was born into the church, and it's something that I kind of as I was doing a lot of the drifting stuff and a lot of the street racing stuff, I wasn't going to church as often, although my faith has always been a big part of my life. But now that, I'm a family man, I'm raising my kids, my mom is a deacon at the church. We are becoming a lot more involved in the church, and it's something that I hope my kids are observing and seeing, and I hope that they follow in our footsteps too.
Awesome. That's 3 very unique ones. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Benson, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story with us and our audience. If people want to get in touch with you or check out your podcast, where can they do that?
Yeah, so they can find us on YouTube. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you download your podcasts. It's called the SIL 80 Mania Podcast. That's spelled SIL. And then the word 80 spelled out EIGHTY, Mania Podcast. We're also on Instagram. We're very active there. If you have any questions, DM me. I always try and be really great at responding to everyone. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, and all the memories and chatting with you here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Another show in the books. I really enjoyed the show. There was so many memories there just speaking with Benson, but to be in the presence of someone who sort of founded it here in the San Gabriel Valley, that's truly an honor to me. And I'm so glad we got the opportunity to share his story with you. If you grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, there's no way that you could have not seen the car culture here. I mean, it's everywhere. You don't have to be in Monterey Park or Alhambra, Covina, West Covina. That car culture is definitely ingrained here in the San Gabriel Valley. Well, that is our show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please consider becoming a patron at Patreon, MySGB Podcast. And you can find the full back catalog of episodes on our website, mysgb.net. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on the MySGV Podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Wormuth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice matter. No, kind of matter.